Hey, do you know who is this? The man in the pic? Meet Mr. Peter Palczynski. Have you heard about him? He, and you will not believe this, Joseph Stalin, changed your lives and organizations forever. Want to know how? I'll tell you this amazing story, so hang on. Act 1, 1901, Russia, long before the Soviet Union was formed. Peter is 21 and he's a brilliant mining and engineer. So the Tsar of Russia picked him up and told him, go to the Don Basin and have a look at the coal fields there. And instead of actually reporting back the business viability of the coal fields, he was struck by the appalling working conditions of the workers there. So he came back to Moscow and told Tsar that this will not work because the workers are suffering abominable working conditions. The Tsar nodded his head, but he didn't quite like it. So, you guessed it correct. He was sort of transferred to less sensitive appointments to Siberia. Peter, thanks to his connections, escapes Russia and goes to Europe. And there he travels around in many countries. He becomes an industrial consultant. And he's enamored by the Western means of working, industrial processes, management, and leadership. So he starts writing articles, incredibly, about the Russian system and egging the Tsar to bring in more industrial reforms for the workers and the processes. That's living very dangerously. Act 2, 1913. Incredibly, Peter is pardoned and he comes back to Russia and he once again becomes the advisor to the Tsar. Can you believe it? Then, the 1917 happens. Russian Revolution. Peter narrowly escapes being bayoneted by the rampaging communist groups, and after the confusion is over, Peter becomes the advisor to the nascent Soviet government. We fast forward to 1950. Stalin is in charge, the Soviet Union is firmly in place. Stalin starts rolling out bigger and bigger projects, and two of them were the Lenin Dam, the largest hydroelectric project in the world, and the steel mills at Magnitogorsk, the largest in the world. So he picks up none other than Peter to go there and advise him on the business viability and processes. Peter goes there and he's again appalled by the conditions there. And he comes back and tells Stalin that you're sitting on an ecological, engineering, and population disaster. Stalin just didn't like it. And remember, that was a time when everyone in the world thought that the Soviets were doing a fantastic thing and their economy was working just fine and the decline hadn't started. Now, Act 3, we fast forward to 1970, and by this time the damage was done. The Soviet system started declining, and just as Peter had predicted, many of these great big projects turned out to be engineering, ecological, and financial disasters. So what was Peter Palczynski's reaction to this all? Unfortunately, he was never there to see it. On a cold April night in 1928, long before the damage became apparent, he was picked up by the Soviet secret police and he was taken to a prison. His wife never saw him again. He was executed a year later, and the charges were high treason and seeking to minimalize Soviet gains and Soviet projects. There ends Peter's story. So how's it all related to us and your organizations? So we skip back to the present. When you look into Peter's life and his learnings and his writings, he comes up with 3 fantastic principles. Number 1, evolve at all costs. Even if you have a strong core business, keep trying new things. This should be a continuous process. The second one is first fire bullets and then cannonballs. So what are we going to try new? The new alternatives should be small enough so that even if it fails, the organization will not crash along with that. The third one is look for feedback, learn from them. And this feedback should come from within the organization and outside the organization, from both places. Now comes the most important thing, the actionable ones. So before that, I will tell you something. The change in your organization, the way the organization changes with time, is a bit like evolution. And this is a very rarely seen aspect of any change. So evolution in any species happens because of mutations, genetic mutations. And so there are some mutations, and some of the mutations becomes prominent and that gets passed on to the next generation. So it's exactly like that for any company. So there are changes and there are variations, and some of the variations are picked up, so they're selected. So the way the company progresses over time is like evolution. It is generally blind, and there are some variations, and some of the variations becomes important and they get picked up. Now the important thing is these variations are because of the continuous propensity to start doing new things, and the selection happens because of certain internal feedback that, oh yeah, this works, financially or business wise, or some external feedback that your product starts selling well, or it crashes, and then it mimics the sort of evolution a species goes through. But the important thing is, if you don't try that, there are no variations, there are no selections, and there is no evolution. So unless and until you keep trying new things, and by trial and error, much like evolution, which is blind, there is no progress in your company. And remember, you might be standing on the crest of your business, but that crest may be a wave which can shift. So you need to keep surfing along to thrive and be successful in today's business. And that's how Mr. Peter Palczynski and Joseph Stalin became so important in your organizations and in your lives. The lessons are there to see. It's all proven. And remember that those three principles which you need to apply to your organizations and to your businesses, and definitely to your lives as well, for personal success. So with that, we come to the end of this episode. Make sure that you comment down below. I will add a transcript of this video below in the description. I know this video has taken a little more time than my normal ones. It's because I needed to convey a story. So please like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video. Thank you for your time. Lead and excel. Thank you.